The bar in Coronado was the kind of place where operators drank in silence and civilians knew better than to ask questions. Low lighting, scarred wood, the smell of salt air mixing with bourbon. It was 21:17 hours on a Friday night when the hand grabbed Captain Eliza Cale's wrist across the bar top. She'd been sitting alone, nursing a ginger ale, wearing civilian clothes jeans, a plain black shirt, hair down. Nothing that screamed military. Nothing that suggested she was 3 years removed from flying combat missions over Helmand Province, or that she now commanded the Navy's most classified Joint Aviation Task Force supporting SEAL team operations across 4 continents. The Marine Corps Staff Sergeant who grabbed her was drunk. Not falling down drunk, but loud drunk. Confident drunk. The kind of drunk that made men twice her size think they could talk to her however they wanted. "You knew here?" he'd asked, leaning in too close. Ignored him, politely at first, then firmly, but drunk men rarely understood firm, so he grabbed her wrist when she reached for her glass. His grip was tight, possessive, the kind of grip meant to establish dominance. "I asked you a question," he said, grinning at his 2 buddies behind him. They were Marines too. She could tell by the haircuts, the posture, the way they carried themselves even off duty. Good men, probably, but following a bad leader in a bad moment. Eliza looked down at his hand and up at his face. Her expression didn't change. "You're going to want to let go," she said quietly. He laughed. "Or what you gonna call your boyfriend?" His buddies chuckled. The bartender, a former sailor who'd worked Coronado bars for 2 decades, went still. He recognized her. He knew exactly who she was, but he also knew she didn't need his help. "No," Eliza said, her voice calm, almost bored. "I'm going to ask you one more time. Let go." The staff sergeant tightened his grip instead. Leaned in closer. "Do you know who I am? I'm a Marine. I've done 3 tours. I've earned my place here, so maybe show a little respect when a warfighter talks to you." That's when the door opened. 3 men in civilian clothes walked in, jeans, t-shirts, but they moved like ghosts, fluid, alert, scanning. One of them saw Eliza at the bar, saw the hand on her wrist. His jaw tightened. The staff sergeant didn't notice. He was too busy staring at Eliza, waiting for her to be impressed. Waiting for her to back down. She didn't. "Let go," she said again. This time it wasn't a request, it was an order, and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. The lead SEAL Lieutenant Commander Derek Haynes, Carlson Reaper, crossed the bar in 4 strides. His hand landed on the staff sergeant's shoulder, not rough, not aggressive, just present, heavy, the kind of touch that said everything without saying anything. "Staff Sergeant," Reaper said quietly, his voice low enough that only the Marines and Eliza could hear. "You're going to want to take your hand off the captain, right now." The staff sergeant blinked, turned, looked up at Reaper, who stood 6'3" and had the kind of face that had seen things most men only had nightmares about. "Captain," the Marine said, confused. His buddies had gone quiet. Eliza still hadn't moved, hadn't flinched. She just sat there, ginger ale in front of her, her wrist still in his grip, waiting. "Captain Eliza Cale," Reaper said, his tone flat, matter of fact. "Commanding Officer of Joint Special Operations Aviation Task Force 11. The woman who commands every rotary and fixed-wing asset supporting SEAL operations in 3 theaters. The woman who signs off on every insertion, every extraction, every close air support mission that keeps men like me alive." He paused, let it sink in. "The woman whose call sign is Valkyrie because she's pulled more operators out of hell than anyone else in the Navy." The staff sergeant's face went white. His grip loosened, but he didn't let go yet. Shock had frozen him. Eliza looked at Reaper. "I had it handled, Commander." Reaper's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "I know, ma'am, but you're our ride home. Can't let someone break your wrist before a mission." One of the other SEALs, a shorter man with a scar running through his eyebrow, stepped up beside the Marines. His voice was conversational, friendly even. "You boys know the story about Helmand Province, 2019, the compound rescue." The Marine said nothing. The staff sergeant finally let go of Eliza's wrist. She picked up her ginger ale and took a sip. Calm, unbothered, the SEAL continued. 6-man team pinned down by Taliban fighters in a compound. No air support available. Chinook took ground fire on approach and had to abort. Everyone wrote them off. Everyone except Valkyrie. He nodded toward Eliza. She was flying a Black Hawk 300 miles away. Heard the distress call, diverted without authorization. Flew through a sandstorm, took fire from 3 positions, put that bird down in a courtyard the size of a tennis court, loaded 6 operators and flew out with hydraulics failing and 1 engine on fire. The Marines were starring now. Eliza didn't look at them. She was looking at the shelves behind the bar, at the bottles, at nothing. She landed that Black Hawk on a fob with no engine power, the SEAL said. Auto-rotation, at night, in a sandstorm. Then walked into the TOC, filed her report, and asked when the next mission was. Silence. The bartender set a fresh ginger ale in front of Eliza without being asked. The staff sergeant was sweating now. "Ma'am, I didn't know, I'm sorry. I thought." Eliza turned to look at him. Her eyes were gray, calm, unreadable. "You thought I was just some woman in a bar." He swallowed, nodded. "Yeah." Set her glass down. "You grabbed a stranger's wrist because you thought she was beneath you. Because you thought your rank, your service, your tour made you more important than whoever she was." Her voice wasn't angry. It was worse than angry. It was disappointed. "That's not how warriors behave, Staff Sergeant." He looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him. His buddies had taken a step back, creating distance. Reaper's hand was still on the Marine's shoulder. Eliza stood. She was 5'7", average build. But she carried herself like someone who'd commanded men in combat, who made life-and-death decisions at 30,000 feet, who'd earned every inch of respect she had. "You want to know who I am?" she said quietly. "I'm the woman who flies the missions no one else will fly. I'm the woman who brings men home when everyone else says it's impossible. I'm the woman who's been shot at, shot down, and decorated for valor. I'm the woman who doesn't need to announce any of that to earn basic human respect." She picked up her jacket from the back of the bar stool. "But more importantly, I'm a commissioned officer in the United States Navy, and you just assaulted me in a public place." The staff sergeant's face drained of color completely. "Ma'am, please, I didn't mean." Eliza held up a hand. He stopped talking. "I'm not going to report this," she said, "because I don't need to. You're going to walk out of here, go back to your barracks, and think about why you felt entitled to put your hands on someone you didn't know. You're going to think about what kind of man does that, and you're going to be better." She looked at his buddies. "All of you," they nodded, quickly, emphatically. The staff sergeant looked like he might cry. "Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry, ma'am." Eliza turned to Reaper. "We have a briefing at 0530. Reaper nodded. "Yes, ma'am." She walked toward the door. The 3 SEALs followed. The bar stayed silent until the door closed behind them. Then the bartender let out a long breath and poured himself a whiskey. The staff sergeant sat down heavily at a table. His hands were shaking. One of his buddies sat across from him. "Dude," he said quietly, "do you have any idea how bad that could have gone?" The staff sergeant put his head in his hands. Behind the bar, the bartender looked at the empty stool where Eliza had been sitting. He'd served a lot of operators over the years. SEALs, Marines, Air Force pararescue, but Captain Kale was different. She didn't need to prove anything to anyone. She just showed up, did the impossible, and went home. He respected the hell out of that. Outside, Eliza was halfway to her truck when Reaper caught up. "You really had it handled," she glanced at him. "I've survived worse than drunk Marines, Commander," he grinned. "I know, I was there for Kandahar." She almost smiled. Almost. "Briefings at 0530. Don't be late." The briefing room at Naval Special Warfare Command was windowless and cold. The kind of cold that came from concrete walls and air conditioning set to Arctic. Eliza stood at the front, tablet in hand, watching as 12 Navy SEALs filed in and took seats. These weren't just any SEALs. This was Team 6, the best of the best. The men who didn't exist on paper. The ones who handled problems that didn't exist on paper either. Reaper sat in the front row. Next to him was Master Chief Warren "Brick" Holloway, a man whose nickname was earned by his refusal to move during a firefight in Ramadi. Behind them were operators whose faces Eliza knew better than her own families. She'd flown them into Syria, into Yemen, into places that didn't have names on maps. On the wall behind her, a screen displayed a satellite image of a compound in the mountains of northern Pakistan. Grid coordinates marked in red, topographical lines showing elevation. A single structure in a valley surrounded by peaks. "Gentlemen," Eliza began, her voice cutting through the low murmur of conversation. The room went silent. At 1900 hours yesterday, Signals Intelligence intercepted communications indicating that Hassan Mirza, primary financier for the Lashkar network, is currently at this location. She tapped the screen. The image zoomed in. The compound was larger than it looked from above. 3 buildings, high walls, guard towers at 2 corners. Mirza has been on our target list for 4 years. He's responsible for funding attacks that killed 17 American service members and more than 200 Afghan civilians. He moves every 72 hours. This is our window. Brick raised a hand. What's the terrain like? Eliza swiped. The screen changed to a 3-dimensional rendering of the valley. Elevation 7,000 feet. Compound sits in a bowl surrounded by peaks reaching 10,000. Single-access road from the east. Nearest Pakistani military installation is 40 miles south. Nearest friendly forces are us. She paused. Insertion will be at night. 2 Black Hawks. I'll be piloting lead bird. Captain Josh Brenner will pilot trail. Each bird carries 6 operators plus crew. We insert on the ridgeline here, she pointed, 1 kilometer north of the compound. You fast rope down, move on foot to the target, secure Mirza, and exfil to the primary LZ here. Another point on the map. Reaper leaned forward. What about air support? 2 Apache gunships on standby 15 miles out. A C-130 Ghost Rider orbiting at 20,000 feet, but we're hoping this stays quiet, in and out before the Pakistanis even know we're there. One of the younger SEALs, a petty officer named Tors, spoke up. What if it doesn't stay quiet? Eliza looked at him. Then I'll make sure you get home anyway. The room was quiet. They'd all heard the stories. Valkyrie didn't leave men behind. Ever. The flight deck at Bagram Airfield was chaos at midnight. Crew chiefs shouting over the rotor wash. Maintainers doing final checks under floodlights. The smell of jet fuel and hydraulic fluid mixing with the thin mountain air. Eliza walked the perimeter of her Black Hawk tail number 617, the bird she'd flown for 3 years. She checked the fuel caps, the rotor blades, the weapons mounts, old habits. Her crew chief, Sergeant Amy Ortiz, was already inside running pre-flight checks. Ortiz had been with her since flight school, had been in the seat behind her during Helmand Province, had never once questioned an order even when those orders seemed suicidal. "How's she looking, Sergeant?" Eliza asked, climbing into the cockpit. Ortiz didn't look up from her checklist. "Perfect as always, ma'am, though the weather brief says we're looking at crosswinds gusting to 40 knots over the border. We've flown worse." "Yes, ma'am, doesn't mean I have to like it." Eliza smiled, strapped in. The cockpit smelled like oil and old leather. The instrument panel glowed green in the darkness. She put on her helmet, adjusted the mic, and began her own checks. Behind her, the first team of SEALs was boarding. She heard their gear clinking, heard Reaper's voice giving quiet instructions. These men trusted her to fly them into hell and bring them back. That trust was the heaviest thing she carried. Heavier than the aircraft, heavier than the weapons. Captain Josh Brenner's voice crackled in her headset. "Lead, this is Trail, we're ready when you are." Brenner was a good pilot, prior Air Force, had flown Pave Hawks in Afghanistan before transferring to the Navy. Solid, reliable, but he didn't have her hours in combat, didn't have her instincts. "Roger, Trail, stand by for engine start." Eliza's hands moved through the startup sequence. Fuel pumps, hydraulics, generators. The Black Hawk's turbines began to whine. The rotor blades started turning, slowly at first, then faster. The whole aircraft began to vibrate. It felt alive. From the tower, the voice of the air traffic controller. "Valkyrie lead, you are cleared for departure. Winds 270 at 15, gusting to 25. Altimeter 3012. Climb and maintain flight level 150 until clear of controlled airspace." Valkyrie lead copies, departing to the north. Eliza pulled collective. The Black Hawk lifted smoothly off the deck. Behind her, Brenner's bird followed. They climbed into the darkness, navigation lights off, using night vision and instruments. Below, the lights of Bagram faded. Ahead was nothing but mountains and stars. In her headset, Reaper's voice. "Valkyrie, Reaper, we're locked in and ready. Take us to work." Eliza glanced at the mission clock. "Roger, time on target in 90 minutes. Weather's going to get rough over the border. Stay strapped in." "Wouldn't dream of anything else, ma'am." The Black Hawks banked north, hugging the valleys, staying below radar coverage. The war was out there in the darkness, waiting. The border between Afghanistan and Pakistan was invisible at night. No fence, no checkpoint, just mountains and valleys that looked the same on both sides. But Eliza knew when they crossed. The air felt different, the stakes higher. They were in denied territory now. If something went wrong, no one was coming to help. Valkyrie lead trail were taking turbulence. Brenner's voice was steady, but Eliza could hear the strain. The wind was worse than forecasted. Gusts were slamming the Black Hawk from the side, trying to push them into the ridgelines. Eliza corrected with smooth inputs on the cyclic. Stay tight, trail, we're 20 minutes out. The night vision goggles turned the world into shades of green. The mountains looked like frozen waves, the valleys like canyons on an alien planet. She'd flown this route a dozen times in simulators, had memorized every peak, every saddle, every potential landing zone. But simulators didn't have 40-knot crosswinds, didn't have the weight of 12 lives depending on her hands. Ortiz's voice from the crew position, fuel state is good, all systems green. Roger. In the back, the SEALs were silent. Some had their eyes closed, some stared at the deck, some checked their weapons for the 10th time. Waiting was the hardest part. Eliza knew that, knew the helplessness of being a passenger, trusting someone else to keep you alive. She'd been there once, early in her career. A training flight gone wrong. The pilot had frozen during an engine failure. She'd been the co-pilot, 23 years old, scared out of her mind, but she'd taken the controls and brought the bird down safely. That was the moment she'd learned something about herself. She was calm when things went wrong, calmer than when things went right. Fear didn't cloud her judgment, it sharpened it. Valkyrie lead Ghostwriter, the AC-130 gunship orbiting high above. We have eyes on target. Minimal thermal signatures. Looks like most of the compound is asleep. Copy Ghostwriter. Any movement on the access road? Negative. Road is clear. Good. The intelligence had been solid. Mirza was there. The compound was quiet. Now they just had to get in and out before that changed. The Black Hawks dropped lower, following a ridgeline that would mask them from the compound until the last moment. The altimeter unwound. 8,000 feet. 7,000. 6,500. The landing zone was a flat space barely large enough for both birds. Rocky ground, no trees, no cover. Eliza had studied the satellite photos until she could see the LZ in her sleep. Valkyrie trail lead, prepare for combat insertion, 30 seconds. Trail copies. Eliza's heartbeat was steady, her breathing controlled. This was what she trained for. This was what she was built for. The compound appeared ahead, dark, quiet, walls casting shadows in the starlight. She banked hard left, approaching the LZ from the north, keeping the ridgeline between her bird and the compound for as long as possible. 10 seconds. The SEALs were on their feet now, hands on the fast ropes, ready. The Black Hawk flared hard. Eliza brought it into a hover 6 feet above the rocky ground. The rotor wash kicked up dust and loose stones. The crew chiefs kicked out the fast ropes. Ropes away, Ortiz called. The SEALs didn't hesitate. One after another, they grabbed the rope and slid down into the darkness. 6 men in 5 seconds. Muscle memory and training. Reaper was last. He gave Eliza a thumbs up before disappearing over the side. Lead is clear, Ortiz reported. Trail is inserting now. Eliza watched Brenner's bird through the night vision. Steady, smooth. His team was on the ground in seconds. Both Black Hawks pulled pitch and climbed, banking away from the LZ, heading to a holding position 3 kilometers west. From there they'd wait, listen to the radio, be ready to come back the moment the SEALs called. In her headset, Reaper's voice came through encrypted comms. Valkyrie Reaper, all teams on the ground, beginning movement to target. Roger Reaper, Valkyrie is standing by. Black Hawks orbited in the darkness. Below, the SEALs were moving through the rocks and scrub brush. Invisible, silent. 12 ghosts closing on a target who didn't know he had minutes left to live. Eliza checked her fuel, checked her systems, ran through emergency procedures in her head. Engine failure, hydraulic failure, taking fire. She had a contingency for everything. Ortiz was quiet in the back. Brenner's bird was 200 meters off their left wing. Tight formation. The minutes stretched. 1, 2, 5. This was the hardest part for Eliza, the waiting. On the ground, the SEALs were doing what they did best. She was just the bus driver, except she wasn't. She was their lifeline, their ride home, the one who'd pull them out of hell if everything went wrong. Valkyrie Reaper, we have eyes on compound. Guard posted on the North Tower, 1 roving patrol, 2 personnel visible inside the main building. Copy Reaper. Beginning infiltration, call you in 10. Roger, Valkyrie is standing by. Eliza glanced at the fuel gauge again. They had 2 hours of loiter time. After that, they'd have to head back to Bagram or land and refuel from Bladders, but that wouldn't be necessary. This was going to be quick. In and out, clean, except war was never clean and plans were just wishes written in pencil. Valkyrie Reaper. The voice was tight now, urgent. We're compromised. Guards saw movement, taking fire. And just like that, the night exploded. Valkyrie copies, stand by. Eliza was already banking toward the compound. Trail, lead, stay on station, I'm going in. Lead, we should stay on station. Trail, that's an order. She pushed the Black Hawk forward, the turbine screamed. Through the night vision she could see muzzle flashes around the compound. Small arms fire, AK-47s from the sound of it. Reaper Valkyrie, I'm inbound, mark your position. West side of the compound, we're pinned down behind a low wall, taking fire from the towers and the main building. Eliza's mind was racing through calculations. Angles, distances, wind. The compound was in a bowl, high ground on all sides. The SEALs were trapped in a kill box. Ghostwriter Valkyrie, request immediate fire support on the guard towers. Valkyrie Ghostwriter, we're tracking, stand by for guns. The AC-130's 105mm howitzer spoke. The sound reached the Black Hawk 3 seconds later, a rolling boom that echoed off the mountains. The north tower of the compound disappeared in a flash of white phosphorus. Good effect on target, Reaper called. South tower is still active. Ghostwriter is shifting fire. Another boom. The south tower exploded, but now the whole valley was awake. Lights were coming on in the compound, more muzzle flashes, and in the distance Eliza could see headlights on the access road, vehicles approaching. Reaper, you've got company coming from the east. 3 vehicles, maybe 5 minutes out. Copy. We need to move now. Mirza is in the main building. Brick's team is going in. Roger, I'll be over you in 30 seconds. Eliza brought the Black Hawk in low and fast. The crew door guns opened up, M240s hammering at the compound walls, suppressing fire, keeping heads down. She could see the SEALs now, shadows moving with purpose. Brick's team was at the door of the main building, breaching charge. The door blew inward. We're inside, Brick's voice, calm, professional, like he was ordering coffee. Eliza held the Black Hawk in a tight orbit 50 feet above the compound. Ortiz was firing controlled bursts from the crew gun, tracers arcing down into the darkness. This was the moment, the knife edge. One wrong move and they'd take an RPG. One mechanical failure and 12 men died, but Eliza's hands were steady. Her breathing was calm. This was where she lived. Valkyrie Reaper, we have Mirza, he's alive, coming out now. Roger, setting up for extraction in the courtyard. Negative Valkyrie, courtyard's too hot, too much fire. Then where? A pause. The roof. Eliza blinked. The roof of the main building was flat, maybe 40 feet across, surrounded by a low wall. It would fit the Black Hawk. Barely. Say again, Reaper. The roof. We're bringing Mirza up now. 30 seconds. Eliza looked at Ortiz. The crew chief's eyes were wide. This was insane, but Ortiz didn't say anything. She trusted Eliza. Roger, coming in now. Eliza banked hard, flared, and brought the Black Hawk into a hover over the roof. The downwash from the rotors kicked up dust and debris. She couldn't see the edges of the roof, couldn't see the SEALs. She was flying on instruments and instinct. 20 feet, Ortiz called. 15, 10. Looking good, ma'am. 5 feet. Easy, easy. The Black Hawk settled, the skids touched. We're down. The SEALs were running now. Eliza could feel the birds shift as they climbed aboard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All personnel on board, Ortiz called. Go, 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 Eliza pulled pitch. The Black Hawk lifted off the roof and immediately banked hard left. Rounds snapped past the cockpit. Something hit the tail boom with a metallic clang. Warning lights lit up the panel. We're taking fire, Ortiz reported. Hydraulic pressure dropping. I've got it, Eliza said. She could feel the controls getting mushy. The Black Hawk wanted to drift. Compensated with aggressive inputs, muscling the bird away from the compound. Valkyrie Trail, lead, I'm hit. Hydraulics are failing. Regroup at Rally Point North. Lead Trail, I'll cover your 6. Brenner's Black Hawk fell in behind them. His door gunners opened up, laying suppressing fire on the compound. The vehicles on the access road were closer now. Technical trucks with heavy machine guns mounted in the beds. They opened fire. Tracers reached up into the darkness like malevolent fingers. Eliza dropped the Black Hawk into the valley floor, using the terrain to break line of sight. The controls were getting worse. She was fighting the aircraft now. Every input required twice the force. Valkyrie, Ghost Rider, those trucks are tracking you. Want me to take them out? Negative, Ghost Rider, save your ammo for the exfil. She didn't say the rest. Didn't say that she wasn't sure they'd make it to the exfil. The hydraulic pressure gauge was in the red. At any moment the system could fail completely. Manual controls only. That meant every input would be like wrestling a bear. In the back, Reaper's voice. How bad is it? Bad, Eliza said honestly, but we're still flying. That's all that matters. The Black Hawks climbed out of the valley, heading west toward the border. Below the compound was a smoldering ruin. Above, the stars were indifferent. Eliza's arms were burning. The cyclic felt like it weighed 50 pounds. Every correction sent pain shooting through her shoulders, but she didn't let go. Didn't ease up. Ortiz was watching the gauges. We're losing fluid, pressures at 20%. I know. Ma'am, we need to land now. We'll land when we're over the border. Ma'am, we'll land when we're over the border, Sergeant. Ortiz went quiet. In the trail bird Brenner's voice, lead, you're smoking. I can see fluid trailing from your tail boom. Copy, how bad? Bad enough that I'm surprised you're still flying. Eliza almost laughed. Almost. Trail, if I go down before the border, you take command. Get these men home. You're not going down. If I do, a pause. Roger, lead, but you're not going down. The border was 10 kilometers away. At their current speed, that was 4 minutes. 4 minutes might as well have been 4 hours. The hydraulic pressure gauge was at 15%, 10%, 5. Ma'am, we're done. System's about to fail completely. I know. The gauge hit 0. The controls went dead. Then suddenly they were back manual mode. No hydraulic assist, just cables and linkages, like flying a helicopter from the 1950s. Eliza gritted her teeth and pulled. The Black Hawk responded like a wounded animal, slow, sluggish, angry. Every input required both hands and all of Eliza's strength. The cyclic wanted to pull left, the collective wanted to drop. The pedals were frozen blocks of concrete. Valkyrie, lead, trail, you just lost hydraulics, didn't you? Brenner's voice was tight. Affirm. Jesus Christ, how are you still flying? Very carefully. Sweat was running down Eliza's face. Her arms screamed. Her shoulders burned. This was beyond training. Beyond muscle memory. This was pure willpower. The Black Hawk wanted to die. She wouldn't let it. 8 kilometers to the border, Ortiz reported. The crew chief had one hand on the overhead strap, watching Eliza wrestle the aircraft. You need me to take controls. Negative, I've got it. In the back, the SEALs were silent. They could feel what was happening. Could feel the aircraft fighting its pilot. Could feel how close they were to falling out of the sky. Reaper's voice quiet. Valkyrie, if you need to put us down, do it. We'll walk out. Not happening, Eliza ground out. Nobody walks home tonight. Ma'am, nobody walks home. She pulled the collective higher. The Black Hawk climbed 50 feet, 100, 200. If the engine quit now, they'd have maybe 30 seconds to auto-rotate. If the tail rotor failed, they'd spin into the ground. If Eliza